Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Book Club of California. My name is Kevin Kosick, and I'm the Executive Director of the Book Club. And on behalf of our volunteers, our members, and all of our guests, I'm delighted to welcome you to the 2023 Oscar Lewis Awards. For those of you that might be new to the Book Club of California, we are a nonprofit member and donor supported organization that was founded in 1912. Our mission is to preserve and promote the history of the book and the book arts. And we have a particular interest in the literature and the history of California and the West. The book club publishes limited edition books. We host a year-round series of exhibitions and programs, both here in San Francisco and in Southern California, on topics including fine printing, design, typography, bookbinding, collecting, and much, much more. Now, the book club is a community that is made up of collectors, printers, designers, booksellers, publishers, writers, and book lovers of all stripes. Membership in the Book Club of California is open to everyone. And if anyone is interested in learning more about membership, I'd be happy to talk to you after the ceremony. Now, we have a very short program for you this evening with several presenters and two incredible honorees. We are not going to be taking questions after each of the honorees' remarks, but we invite you to speak to the honorees directly after the ceremony, either here in the club rooms or join us in the library. As I said earlier, I'm going to enable the chat on Zoom, so you will in a moment have the ability to chat with one another. But again, we're not going to be taking questions in the Q&A or in the chat on Zoom this evening. So now to get us started, I'd like to introduce Paul Robertson, President of the Book Club of California's Board of Directors.
Thank you, Kevin. I hope you can all hear me. I'm close enough to the mic. So good evening, members and guests. I'm Paul Robertson, the President of the Book Club of California. On behalf of the board and our members, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2023 Oscar Lewis Awards. The Oscar Lewis Awards were established by the Book Club of California in 1994 in honor of Oscar Lewis, San Francisco author, historian, and Book Club of California secretary from 1921 to 1946. The Oscar Lewis Awards recognize outstanding contributions in two fields, Western history and the book arts. Past awardees include some of the most accomplished printers, designers, book artists, and historians. Some of them are with us tonight at the book club or joining us online via Zoom. And could we take just a moment to recognize those people? Would everyone who is a past awardee stand? Thank you. Tonight's honorees are equally qualified and talented. They have impressive resumes. First, I'd like to thank Matt Kelsey of Camino Press, who designed and printed the elegant letterpress invitations and certificates that we will be presenting to the honorees tonight. I would also like to thank Norman Clayton, Terry Castaneda, co-chairs of the Oscar Lewis Awards category committee. The committee is responsible for reviewing nominations from the membership and selecting the honorees. Norman and Terry were assisted by committee members Martin Rizzo Martinez, Brendan Lindsay, Kitty Mayette, and Lai Zhang. Thank you all for your incredible work. Committee co-chairs Norman Clayton and Terry Castaneda will be presenting the awards this evening. So I'd like to turn the podium over to Norman to tell us about our first honoree. Norman? Oh, yes, okay.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Norman Clayton, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you tonight. We are here at the Book Club of California this evening to recognize and honor two individuals who have devoted their lives to excellence in their chosen profession. In my opinion, and that of many others, no one is more deserving currently of the Oscar Lewis Award in Book Arts than Richard Seibert. Thought I turned it off or something. It's not a matter of volume. Although maybe I need to speak up for Richard. It's a matter of caring and refinement. It's a matter of generosity of spirit. What are we doing here if we don't care about the future of what we value? Richard has quietly and carefully worked very hard for many years, refining his craft without looking for recognition, while happily sharing his knowledge to those who share an interest. In fact, anybody who walks in the door, he'll share his knowledge to those who care. Satisfied he is at the end of each challenging day that he has done his small part to bring beauty and wisdom to paper. As a printer, this is done in order that the printed word can be shared with many, many others. It's a blessing. The art of the book is the most beautiful, faithful, readable representation of the written text possible. So much care, time, and attention is given to details in a book or broadside that the amount of work is not noticed because it is performed in service to the printed word. When you read a poem or a story and receive the author's intention in its fullest possible power, then the typographer, printer, book artist has fulfilled his or her mission. The members of the Book Club of California and everyone here tonight understand this and support this, and everybody benefits as a result. There's a sign at St. Hieronymus that reads, "Stop, think, there must be a harder way." This does bring humor to our often maddening profession. When you add automation to a process, you bring efficiency. But when you take automation away from a creative process, with a skilled craftsperson, you can return refinement and presence to the work. Richard Seibert is a letterpress printer, poet, translator, artist, and chef. He's been active in the Bay Area, the East Bay, since the 1970s. Richard has lived an incredible life in the arts. After studying the classics and literature, he cooked at Chez Panisse Cafe for 15 years. David Lance Goings of St. Hieronymus Press taught him how to print in 1990. Richard soon began working with Peter Rutledge Koch, where he refined his letterpress skills over the next 10 years. He returned to St. Hieronymus Press with David in the summer of 2005. Richard has a long history of working with the Book Club of California on our quarterly newsletter, limited edition books, keepsakes, and ephemera. His most recent run of the quarterly newsletter was volumes 84 and 85. He also printed volumes 77 and 78 and volumes 80 and 81. Some of the work is here. In addition to designing and printing the book club's most recent keepsake, he designed and printed the 2017 keepsake, developing an image, photography, books, and the National Park Service, and the 1999 keepsake, the bicentennial of lithography. Richard is credited with designing, printing, or providing ephemera for dozens of books from printers including Peter Koch Printers, Jungle Garden Press, and many more. He played an important role in designing and printing elements of book club publication Dear Master, letters of George Sterling to Ambrose Bierce, and the book club publication Palatino, The Natural History of a Typeface. He will soon begin working on a book club publication featuring poems from California former Poet Laureate Dana Gioia, with woodcut illustrations provided by Richard Wagner. All right. Please join me in congratulating Richard Seibert, recipient of the 2023 Oscar Lewis Award for the Book Arts.
I'd like to ask Richard to say a few words.
Here is your handsome certificate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This computer here. Norman exaggerated my the voice transmitting. No. Norman exaggerated my accomplishments a little bit, I think, but we'll let that go by.
Richard, you're a wonderful cook.
Well,
Anybody who Lionel at your shop knew that you were a wonderful cook.
he didn't mention lunch.
He said, you're better.
Well, one thing that I would like to say that I'd never thought of saying until that speech was the George Sterling book was a favorite to work on. I'd forgotten about that. It's one of the rare things anybody who's done any typesetting realizes that. I read the George Sterling book twice. It slowed me down a lot, Peter. That's why it took so long. Okay, do we have, how do I, Kevin, how do I get to the cartoon?
Up there.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. And Norman mentioned, I'm ad-libbing here, I'm prepared to speak. Norman mentioned the shop. It's not just a motto, it's a slogan. Stop, think, there must be a harder way. There are things all over St. Hieronymus that you never notice. Every time you go in, you see something new, and it takes years and years and years until you starting seeing things new. And when you do stop starting seeing new things, because you aren't looking anymore. I'm still seeing new things. I've been there for 30 years. So thank you very much, book club members, for this very unexpected award. I've many times attended and many times printed announcements and certificates for the Oscar Lewis Awards. And many of my heroes and most of my teachers are past recipients. It is a tribute to how well they taught me that I'm standing here tonight. As David used to say, no honor means more than that of your peers. I still do not know what I did to deserve this honor. My best guess is that it was someone's bright idea to get me west of the Bay Bridge. So it is with more than a little bit of pride, apparently deserved, that I overcome imposter syndrome tonight. I have always thought it a little bit odd that the Oscar Lewis Awards chooses both a historian and a book artist to honor each year. They seem such different disciplines to me. The one dusty and settled, the other inchoate and incipient. But after a little thought, it became clear to me that they are two sides of the same thing. Without books, there is no history. Writing is the boundary between history and prehistory. The making of books is the making of history, and historians create history as much as they curate it. All of which makes the book club a Janus-like deity sitting still in the mull of now, looking both forwards and backwards at the same time, curating and creating. The Oscar Lewis Award simply pairs the art of history with the art of the book. As I'm sure you all know, this award comes to me at a very awkward time. I don't think quite a month had passed since David died when Norman and I had dinner, and he told me that he had some, quote, good news, close quote, for me. But even good news is conflicting in the midst of grief. The honor came as a shock, mixed in with the disbelief, sadness, and regret. The anger and denial, which everyone thinks they're immune to, but that which all of us have to learn to go through. Even now, I am still caught in the mortar of how things were and churned by the pestle of how things will be. The only thing I know is that everything is different now. Even after I pinch myself to reassure myself that this is not just some surreal dream, I still find myself asking, why? I am a very good printer. I am a competent designer, but I have made more printers than I have made books. Every press I've ever been a part of, Peters and St. Hieronymus, has been a teaching press. The apprentices fly through the shop as swiftly as the paper that moves through the presses. We make our mark, send them out into the world, and then get started on the next piece of work. The first time I saw words come off of a printing press, my heart was gone. All practical good sense went out the window, and nothing was left but heady hope. I am a classic case of a good craftsman who is not a very good businessman. And I am still idealistic enough to consider that a compliment. Whereas I'm not quite saying where it is, but pro tip, following your passion can lead to poverty. But that is always because I have always believed that it is the work that is important, not the worker nor the thing made. I have always thought of myself with pride as a technician and not as an artist. My first mentor was not a printer, but he has gone far in making up the printer I have become. He used to say that every moment is a choice, an instance of yes or no. And it is our duty as moral beings in an amoral world to weigh our hearts against a feather and always seek an affirmative balance. What we have to do as craftsmen and as historians is to be true to what we find and let the story tell itself. Every Heidelberg printing press has a medallion on it. Most just clue you into what year your press was manufactured. But my KSBA has an additional phrase in German on it. Gott grüßt die Kunst. God greet the work. It is a kind of collective greeting in Southern German press rooms to which the more Northern Protestants reply, but hopefully not too soon. It is a prayer that the work goes well as much as it is a greeting. You run a printing press with your ears as much as with your eyes. You lean in, listening, and try to match the rhythm of your heart to the rhythm of the press, to maintain that delicate balance of just enough but not too much ink that is so hard to find and so much harder to hold. The press sheets fly, one by one, until a lifetime of work is accumulated behind you in geologic strata of jobs you can't even remember. I feel like Schrodinger's cat, a superposition of yesterday and tomorrow. I cannot know one thing without knowing another. Ending and beginning blur. I can see neither history nor fortuity. The only thing I know is that at this juncture is your honor. The craft has used me, now honors me. There is nothing more satisfying than to make a tool that makes other tools. The English word catastrophe is cognate with the Greek word for what a plow does to the earth. What overwhelms us, we little beasties, is merely nature getting ready for new plantings. It can take a while to find our bearings again after thunderbolts or earthquakes, but we inevitably do. Stephen Jay Gould called it punctuated equilibrium. Everything is the same for a long time, and then everything's different. The same, but different. I am not quite sure how everything is yet, but I am confident it will soon be normal. And all of those books I was going to publish, well, time has a way of reminding you of practicality. I do not regret a single page, a single word, a single letter that I have printed. And apparently I have made a good impression. I do not know what Oscar Lewis would think of me standing here tonight, being honored with his name, but I hope that he would be proud. He reminds me that even though the realists win in every inning, it is the idealist who wins in the end. So if you will excuse me now, there's some history in the future.
Thank you, Richard, and congratulations.
Thank you. I am greatly honored.
Next, to present the 2023 Oscar Lewis Award for Western History, please welcome Terry Castaneda.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see such a robust audience at the book club after COVID. It's wonderful. The 2023 Oscar Lewis Award for Western History is awarded to Dorothy Lazard, a librarian for 40 years. Yes, clap. A librarian for 40 years, Dorothy joined the staff of the Oakland Public Library in 2000, becoming the Oakland History Center's head librarian in 2009. Recently retired, Dorothy Lazard is nothing short of legendary in Oakland, but more often than not, the intellectual labor of librarians and archivists is woefully undersung. After all, it is their work identifying and preserving primary source materials that makes it possible for us to tell the stories of who we are as families, communities, cities, nations, and of course, the West. Dorothy's knowledge of Bay Area history, of the Oakland History Center's collection, of the city's development and redevelopment, of its many neighborhoods, community organizations, agencies, and business entities is not purely intellectual. Born in St. Louis, she grew up in the Bay Area and brought this lived expertise to those who turned to the center for help. In her words, the students, professors, architects, genealogists, real estate agents, developers, filmmakers, novelists, and visual artists. In 2020, while approaching a planned retirement date, after which she was going to work on her own book, Dorothy was busy initiating new projects to ensure that the nature of everyday life in the East Bay during the COVID-19 lockdown was well documented for future generations. Noting that while mass grieving of the once normal life is overwhelming and ongoing, there's something hopeful about archiving. This is the spirit and the presence of mind of a social and public historian at work. As head of the Oakland History Center from 2009 to 2021, Dorothy encouraged people of all ages and backgrounds to explore local history. Is it all right? Did you change that? Oh, sorry. Touching the computer. To explore local history. Let me tell you what this looks like on an average day. Last May, I was there conducting research. At the table next to me was a mystery writer combing through files of old newspapers, magazine clippings, and the like in search of inspiration for her next crime novel. Throughout the day, researchers consulting old directories and photographs and journals came and went. And then around 3 p.m., a young man, maybe 16, wandered into the room and sat down by a tall window overlooking the intersection of Madison and 14th. I figured he had just come in from school and had chosen this spot because it had a nice view and an outlet where he could recharge his cell phone.
Right.
I also imagined that he'd be on that phone while it recharged, checking social media, listening to music, texting, or whatever it is that high school boys do. But I was wrong. After plugging it in, he got up and browsed the History Center stacks, eventually pulling 2 books off the shelf, including one I could see from my own perch was about the Black Panther Party. And there he sat for a couple hours, long after that phone recharged, reading words on a printed page in a physical book about a movement for social protection and reform that was founded in his city half a century ago. Don't let anyone tell you that history or books or reading is dead. The West that Oscar Lewis wrote about endures, though it is certainly unmoored from the spatial and temporal bounds that fixed his interest and imagination. Tonight, we are celebrating a librarian, an author, and an archivist who knows the West from a different vantage. For more than 2 decades, she has carried on and helped to reimagine the legacy of one of the Bay Area's oldest book-related institutions. First conceived in 1868 as the Oakland Free Library, later renamed the Oakland Public Library. Remarkably, it has been an institutional member of the Book Club of California since 1939. That's 84 years. By sheer accident of timing and prodigious luck, we're also celebrating the release of Dorothy's first book. What You Don't Know Will Make a Whole New World, a memoir. Here, Dorothy tells the story of her journey to becoming, quote, queen of my own nerdy domain, connecting her intellectual pursuits, including a formative encounter with Alex Haley, to the career that made her a community pillar. As she traces her trajectory to, did I change that? Sorry, okay. She traces her trajectory to adulthood. She also explores her personal experiences connected to the Summer of Love, the murder of Emmett Till, the flourishing of the Black arts movement, and the redevelopment of Oakland. Please join me in congratulating Dorothy Lazard, recipient of the 2023 Oscar Lewis Award for Western History. I'd like to ask Dorothy if she would say a few words after I present her with this beautiful letterpress printed certificate.
Can everybody hear me? I was just about to shed a tear. Thank you so much for those kind words. Wow, a lot's coming at me right now. One thing that's coming at me is remarks by Richard and remembering how I was dodging courses like calculus and trigonometry in high school to take a printmaking class instead, and macrame, because it was the 70s after all. I want to start off first by thanking the members of the Book Club of California for recognizing my work in the field of history. This is a completely unexpected and wholly appreciated honor to receive this award. My work at the History Center was the most satisfying work in all of my 38 years as a librarian. And the experience I had there had a profound effect on me, changing the way I saw my city and my role in it. The History Center job provided me with opportunities to be all the things I ever dreamt of becoming: a teacher, a writer, a detective, a tour guide, a mentor, a team member, a curator, and a more engaged citizen. Before I came to the job, I was very happily working at the adult reference desk at Oakland's main library when I was assigned to the Oakland History Room, as it was called then. Being responsible for 7 collections, including history, architecture, maps, and genealogy, I, needless to say, had my hands full. Once I was transferred up to the history room, I was initially nervous, unsure of my ability to harness all the information there, because it functions as the city's unofficial archives with all types of government reports, vital records, historic photos, maps, and so much more. My anxiety fell away as I helped people find long lost relatives and wage political battles, write blogs, and investigate municipal policy, discover the history of their homes, and get acquainted with their new neighborhoods. It didn't take long for me to realize that my professional responsibilities, my life in Oakland, and my curiosity about this city that I grew up in made me an ideal candidate for the job. There was a vitality to the History Center that I found particularly appealing, and I came to embrace the work. At the History Center, I made sure that the staff and I practiced what I call archival hospitality. It's a rare thing for such a unique and invaluable resource to be located in a public library. In a public library setting, we emphasize access rather than curation. Our goal was to have the community engage the documents, the photographs, the ephemera. They are not under glass. My mission was to educate the public about Oakland and East Bay history in as many ways as I had available to me. But I also worked to make sure that we empowered our library patrons so that they could chart their own research paths, moving confidently from one resource to another. We answered an endless array of questions, reference questions, increased photo digitization, mounted exhibits, and hosted popular fall history lecture series. From the public, we regularly accepted gifts like yearbooks, photographs, club rosters, and street directories, which helped expand our collections. Among these historic treasures, we invariably found items outside of the scope of our collection, and we shared those with other libraries and historical societies across the country. In doing this, we created a kind of informal history swap meet, which strengthened our organizational ties and expanded our clientele. We helped researchers from all over the world, filmmakers from France and China, genealogists from Ireland, a novelist from Australia, journalists from Japan, art students from Italy. All of them had an Oakland story to tell. And it was an honor for me to play midwife to those wide-ranging narratives. People began referring to me as a historian rather than a librarian. That was a big pill to swallow, and I'm not always sure that it was completely dissolved. In my worldview, a historian is a person who interprets the past so that we might learn how to navigate the present time. We Americans find ourselves stuck today in a mire of ahistoricism. There's a troubling willful ignorance spreading right now that shows up in the rejection of multicultural history curricula, the widespread banning of books, and the suppression of speech about subjects deemed too controversial or divisive, subjects that confront white supremacy, stereotypes, or exclusion. It shows up most intimately in our own families, when stories are not passed down from one generation to the next. When we choose to forget, when we shut our eyes to learning, when we alter the narrative to make it more palatable, we all lose something culturally valuable. This historical blindness, I fear, leads to the very divisiveness critics of nuanced histories dread. I see it as a type of national immaturity, not unlike the child who closes his eyes when they don't want to face what they've done. Despite the book bannings and the curricular battles, despite the disinformation campaigns, I see historians steadily and creatively countering this decline in history education. They continue to give us richly researched, beautifully composed, robust histories of California. And I'm inspired by the variety of people doing this work to locate the story behind the stories that we've been told. Professors, bloggers, podcasters, walking tour guides are digging deep into archives and connecting with elders to discover underreported and forgotten narratives. We enrich ourselves when we bring to light the overlooked details, the connections, and the complications. I'm learning to embrace the moniker public historian because I've learned how librarians and historians serve as cultural ambassadors. Learning and spreading Oakland's history helped me see how interconnected we are and how the decisions we make today will affect us in the future. The work provided me with an understanding of how our city looks, operates, and grooves. Though I'm retired now, I plan to keep working with those history projects and institutions that broaden rather than shrink our common narratives. I am proudly following in the footsteps of Delilah Beasley, of Ruth and Eugene Lazard, and of course of Oscar Lewis and so many more local historians. It's a rich pedigree that I'm privileged to be a part of. So I want to thank you all who've come today. I want to thank the members of the Book Club of California for this particularly fine honor. I'm encouraged by your appreciation of my work, which I've often said I would do for free, but I'm glad I didn't have to. Thank you so much.
And congratulations. So the good folks from Heyday Books are here with copies of Dorothy's memoir. And if you're interested in obtaining a copy, which I think all of you should be, join us afterwards in the library.
That's the library for those of you who don't know. A little hint about where it is. And we have a book display out there. And Dorothy has agreed to sign copies for folks if you're interested in acquiring a book. So it's my great pleasure now to wrap this up for everybody. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here at the book club in our club rooms and on Zoom. I'm delighted that we're again able to gather in person and also have a virtual audience join us for honoring our 2023 Oscar Lewis Award recipients. I look forward to the next time I see you all here in person or in our virtual community. And I guess this concludes the 2023 Oscar Lewis Award ceremony. Thank you again for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Good night.